Baskets for the candidate, questions, and paper if you didn't already pre-come with your questions.
Well, first of all, thank you, Americans, for restoring the Constitution, for this opportunity tonight. Opportunity is actually the theme of my campaign, as well as restoring America. I was born in 1971 in Binghamton, New York. When I was born, this country was the greatest country on earth. We had a debt that was manageable. We had the respect and trust of most free nations in the world. And the future looked incredibly bright. Look around you today. Things are not the same. And my campaign for Congress is about changing that. The greatest threat to our national security is not the Islamic State or Al-Qaeda. It is our national debt. Study history. Every country that has built up a debt as large as ours has either defaulted on that debt or printed their way out of it. We need to take immediate action to stop the cycle of borrowing and spending. And sacrifice must become a part of the American political dictionary, as well as the belief that things will just take care of themselves. When I look around the world, I see many challenges that America must confront. But the greatest challenge to our nation is what we've done with it. There is a whole war being waged in America today that involves culture. People have lost their respect for traditional values. There's not much anyone can do about that on the federal level, but there's a lot we can do in our communities to change that. One of the most important things, I think, for our leaders in Washington to realize is that this land is our land. It belongs to the citizens of this country and the legal residents we've allowed to be here. One of the challenges for America is showing the world that American citizenship matters. There are over 10 million illegal aliens residing in this country, working, taking jobs away from Americans. There's only a small percentage of jobs that Americans in general wouldn't do, and most are related to agriculture. You now can find illegal aliens working in fields as diverse as construction, retail, whatever. We need to make, as a nation, a serious move to get illegal aliens out of this country. And when I'm in Congress, I will vote to fund removing as many illegals from this nation as possible. Because this country belongs to us, not them. And no one should ever take the United States of America for granted. Every other country in the world has a tough policy on immigration, except us. And there's a difference between taking in refugees from political violence and people migrating across the border for economic opportunity. Globalization is a great topic. It's a hot topic for discussion. I believe our government has failed America by participating in globalization, but not forcing other nations to have a fair and level playing field. Our government must demand of foreign countries that they allow American businesses access to their markets, and not just in name only. That means that countries that are opposed to American imports on the basis of nationalism must change how they look at their place in the world, just as we have changed how we look at our place in the world. I believe that this district can compete on a global basis, provided people are willing to take the challenge. While I was going around and gathering signatures for my petition, I met a woman in Windsor who has an organic dairy farm. And the organic milk that her farm produces eventually ends up in China. There are actually opportunities for even farmers in globalization, but our government must do more to open up markets. A lot of people are concerned about our military. There are certain things that we can do to improve our military strength. But the real problem in America is not the strength of our military, but how our leaders in Washington use it. Many of the conflicts in the Middle East are age-old and would exist whether America was part of those conflicts or not. America needs to focus its attention on what is going on within America and pay less attention to what is going on overseas. And the best way to do that is to develop our own energy resources so that energy cannot be used as leverage over America or its allies. As everyone knows, through fracking, we've been able to increase our domestic natural gas and oil production. America must continue to find innovative ways to use its energy resources to become totally energy independent. And I am completely opposed to the export of American natural gas and oil, except to our closest neighbors, Canada and Mexico. America's natural resources should not be used just so big oil and gas companies can make larger profits. As everyone knows, the petition process is going on now. I would like to invite everyone in this room here tonight to become a part of my process of getting on the ballot. I do not have the support of the party elite. That is because I intend to go to Washington for you, not the establishment. I'm going to Washington to change things, not to play political games or worry about re-election. The only people I want to satisfy are the people in this room and the people in my district. And other than owing allegiance to our country, I'll owe my total allegiance to you. The group's name is Restoring the Constitution. I think that starts by respecting the values that founded this nation. Thank you.
Okay. Next up will be Aaron Price. Mr. Price, you have previously stated that you support creating new taxes that will target all Americans. This is a subject that is largely opposed in a bipartisan manner. How do you expect to get such a proposal passed in Congress?
Well, it's very simple. The American public needs to be given a choice. And the choice is the same old tired solutions which don't work or bold ideas. We will never be able to balance the federal budget or start paying off the deficit unless people understand the consequence of their choices at the election stage and also of their leaders in Congress. By being willing to basically say the unthinkable for a politician, I believe eventually it can happen. Every American should be forced to pay for the consequences of decades of government spending. And until every American feels the pinch in their wallet, politicians will continue to sell them moonshine.
Thank you. Next up is Mr. Price. Mr. Price, what do you believe are the first steps needed to reform immigration?
Well, the first step to reforming immigration, I hope you mean illegal immigration, is getting tough and serious about it. That means funding, hiring the thousands and thousands of federal agents that would be needed to get illegals out of the country. It also means building the infrastructure, which includes expanding the court system and things like that, in order to remove illegals from this country. Once illegal aliens who are in this nation understand that they can be deported, and will be deported. There will be a lot less illegal immigration. There was a great Spartan philosopher who said that Sparta's men were their walls. We don't need a wall around our country. We need to enforce the laws that we have through hiring more people to enforce them. And then you will see the border with Mexico and the border with Canada slam shut.
Thank you. Now on to Mr. Price. Same question, I just pulled pro-choice or pro-life.
I believe in the culture of life, but I believe we need to move beyond simply trying to ban abortions, but change how people in our country view abortion. I view abortion not only as a crime against the unborn child, but against the woman who has the abortion. And while I am a definite deficit hawk, I would be more than willing in Congress to explore ways of a waiting period for women who need non-medical emergency abortions, to offer them a choice, that the government would pay for the expenses of having their child if they were willing to give it up for adoption. We cannot state that we love people when we condone a practice that results in so many unfortunate deaths. I definitely am pro-life.
Okay, Mr. Price, what would your top 3 priorities be to best serve the 22nd District?
Top 3 priorities. First of all, will be finding ways to bring business to my district. And I hope to do that through extensive networking, not only in Washington, but throughout the nation and the rest of the world. My second priority will be immigration reform, which means removal of illegal aliens from this country, because citizenship must mean something. And the veterans of this district who have suffered and fought for this country deserve to know that their sacrifice means something, and citizenship does have value. The third priority would just be listening to you and finding out what your priorities are, and then enacting your will in Congress, and not my will on all things.
Mr. Price, please comment on how the Fast and Furious scandal was handled.
Oh, I think it was handled very poorly. First of all, Fast and Furious never should have happened. We should never break the laws of a foreign country. Mexico has super strong gun control laws that should have been respected. The Obama administration has not done a good job of policing itself. And I hope that the next president will do a much better job of looking after his presidency's dirty laundry. Because every president has scandals, just as every Congress has scandals. It doesn't matter what happens, it matters how it is handled. And that's the key to what I intend to do in Washington. We can't change everything in the world, but we can change how we deal with it. And when I'm in Congress, I intend to be the most moral and ethical person up there.
Thank you. Mr. Price, how are you going to bring jobs back to this area?
Well, the first way to bring jobs back to this area is finding businesses that we can bring back to this area. The second way to bring jobs back is to reform how the government spends its money. There won't be any jobs here in this district if our government continues to bankrupt America. By changing how the government spends money, we can reduce the need for all of our taxes. It's a long-term project, but it's the only way to secure the future for this generation and the next one. And the other thing is, let's not wait for government to do everything. Let's encourage the people of this district that suffer from upstate's most common disease, which is apathy, to actually get active and change their lives and the lives of their communities.
Mr. Price, NATO was created to deter Soviet aggression. The Soviet Union no longer exists. Do we still need NATO?
We do not need NATO in its present shape and form. One of the greatest mistakes in foreign policy occurred at the end of the Cold War, when simply the Russians should have been given incentive to become an active partner with Europe and with us by developing democratic institutions in line with their cultural traditions, and not making Russia an enemy of Europe or the United States by valuing their traditional historical interests, which doesn't mean caving into everything they want, but understanding where they're coming from. This is, I think, Russia understands where we're coming from in our relationship with countries in Latin America and the Caribbean. If NATO only exists to pay great salaries to officers, then it is worthless. And countries in Europe should be forced to make a greater commitment to their own defense without relying on us.
Thank you. Mr. Price, in advocating for Obamacare, the President assured the Congress that no monies would be used to fund abortions. That assurance was necessary to obtain the support of Bart Stupak and a small group of pro-life Democrats. However, the HHS mandate requires Little Sisters of the Poor to fund abortion and contraception, which is contrary to Catholic teaching. If the Supreme Court rules against Little Sisters of the Poor, what, if any, action should Congress take on the matter?
Well, first of all, the Catholic Church should not be forced to provide abortion services in any way, shape, or form, and neither should other religious groups that oppose abortion. On the issue of contraception, it's perfectly fine if the government forces people to provide birth control services. There is a big difference between abortion and birth control. The worst thing about Obamacare is that something was broken and Obamacare didn't fix it. And I believe that people's attitude towards health care needs to change. One of the reasons that health care is more expensive is because people can live longer, healthier lives with modern medical care. And maybe people should just get used to the idea of paying more for their medical care. Not through our government, but in general. Because I think it's a great thing that people live longer, healthier lives.
Thank you. Next up, Mr. Price, if you were in Congress now, how, if at all, would you weigh in on the President's Cuban policy?
The Cuban policy is a complete disaster. And the reason for that is this. During the Cold War, we had diplomatic relations with communist countries all around the globe. We have an embargo on Cuba and no diplomatic ties for a reason, because American property was seized during and after the Cuban Revolution. We had a strong hand. We have something Cuba wants. Frankly, they have nothing we want. Instead of demanding compensation for the economic loss to our citizens of their property, our government tossed it away in a goodwill gesture. Our Cuban policy is a complete, total failure. Nothing good will happen in Cuba because of our change of policy of extending diplomatic relations.
One of my favorite writers once said that the most awful thing in the world is to see things as they are and not as you want them to be. It is very awful to see America as it is and to drop the rose-colored lenses. When I go to Congress, I'm going to make every effort to change things not only in this district, but around the nation as well. One of my main goals will be starting the process of getting illegal aliens out of this country, because citizenship does mean something. And I intend, when I'm in Congress, to take a long, hard look at our foreign entanglements and to change what needs changing and to stop working on things that don't work. And remember, America had a splendid past because it minded its own business and built itself. And that's the spirit I'm going to carry forward when I am in Congress working for you. We need to worry less about what others are doing and worry more about what we can accomplish here in the homeland. And part of accomplishing great things is building a better future for the next generation. Whatever your spiritual beliefs, we owe it to the next generation to take care of the problem of our debt. And when I'm in Congress, I will work hard to ensure that the next generation is not saddled with our sins. And I'm going to work very hard to do what you want done. Many people do not believe that change is possible, but I know it is. My mother is the town supervisor, Windsor, New York. 100-odd years ago, you couldn't hold office or vote. Things can change if we work for change and believe. Thank you.
I want to thank you for taking a moment today to be speaking with Aaron Price and Mrs. Michael Vestal of the Binghamton Political Buzz Examiner.com. And we've just had the Vestal meeting with the Americans for the Restoration of the Constitution, and they've held a candidate night where all of the candidates, almost every candidate running for the New York 22nd race here. One of those is Mr. Price, as we said, Aaron Price. And how do you feel about this candidate?
Well, I thought it was a great evening. Each candidate had a chance to speak about what mattered to them, and there was an audience that knew the issues and knew what the truth was. And you don't always get that when you speak to the public. Not every group is as well informed as this group, or as engaged in politics.
You were asked a lot of questions tonight by all of the candidates, going over a great deal of issues. Was there any specific issue that you weren't able to speak about that you hoped to? And I know there's a little background noise. That's what happens at events. But was there an issue or a question that you weren't able to speak about that you'd like to mention right now?
In general, I was satisfied with the questions I was asked. One of the things that inspired me the most was the fact that so many of the candidates talked about the problem of illegal immigration. And that topic was covered thoroughly. And this is one of the few forums that I've had a chance to really tell people what I feel about illegal immigration and how important it is for our country to remove illegals from this nation in a timely, efficient manner.
Now, I know we've had an interview once before, and of course we'll continue in April. Once the petitions have been done, we're going to be having another round of interviews with the candidates. We assume, of course, that everyone will get onto the ballot, and we believe you will as well. So we will ask, look forward to speaking with us again, having a second interview with us.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. One other thing I'd like to add, Michael, the only criticism I have of tonight is that it's very easy sometimes to overlook the poorest of Americans, the people that work hard for a living, that are paid the least. And that's really the people that I want to fight most for, are the people who do try to do their best in bad circumstances. Now, when I go to Congress, I'm going to remember them. I know that a lot of times liberals say they're the voice of the common man. Well, I intend to be the true voice of the common man. And remember that not every American has a shot at the American dream. But we should do everything possible so that everyone can at least attain something out of life. And we shouldn't allow people from other nations to take away opportunities from the poorest Americans. Because you know what? There, but for the grace of God, go I.
Few words, all lived that to a certain extent, some of us more than others. Thank you.
No, thank you, Michael. You're great.
And we hope that you're going to have a good night. I want to take the rest of the people who speak here tonight, who will be speaking in Russian.
Thank you, sir.